you found it.
Well, good morning. I'm glad you're here. If you haven't said hi to Mary individually, you can do that before you leave. Let's open with the word of prayer. God, we thank you for this day, for the exuberance of small children, for the blessing of a little bit of rain, for the joy of being able to gather here together to read and study your word. Be with us today in our thoughts and in our words. Help us to learn what it is that you have for us to learn from your word. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Okay. We are talking about Zephaniah today. Who knows anything at all about Zephaniah?
He's a minor prophet.
That's one thing. He's a minor prophet. And he's not Zechariah.
That's not it.
And he's not Zechariah.
Zechariah.
Yeah. Zechariah will come later. We're just talking about this one today. You know, when we play with the blocks, we have a number of names and we try to put them in order. And of course, I'm messing that up totally because we're not doing these necessarily in the order of how they occur in the scripture. But anyway, we'll survive that. So anyway, so who knows anything else about him?
He may have come from more of a royal line. Some of our other minor prophets were more, out in the
common.
Yeah, he's probably not a country gentleman.
Yes.
Probably more refined than that. And how do we know that?
Chapter verse 1.
It says
it gives a lineage.
It gives a lineage.
Yeah.
Have we seen that before? No, not like that. Maybe a father, but that's about it. This has got a list of 4 generations of family.
Yeah, so I'm higher on the food chain.
Well, mine says, go down the line, you get to the son of Hezekiah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Son of Ammon.
And we don't really know whether that's the same Hezekiah that was the king.
but
One of the things you have in your folder is a list of royalty, kings, and so on. So you see, on the one that looks like this, you see Hezekiah there, and then Manasseh, and then Ammon, and then Josiah, and there may be some others in between that are not on the list.
Zephaniah is opposite Josiah.
On the other list, yeah.
On this one, yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
this one has the
definitely,
prophets on it, so.
I think he is Hezekiah's line.
Mm-hmm.
This Hezekiah.
Zephaniah, on this timeline, which I like because it's got the prophets on it.
Yeah.
Zephaniah, across from Josiah. And of course, you realize that all of this, every one of these timelines is an educated guess based on suppositions. They're all guesses. So that's why none of them are ever the same. No 2 timelines are ever exactly the same. But we don't really know. But it's approximate. So.
And I think Stephan means hidden. Beginning of his name means hidden.
Hidden. There's another word that might fit in there too.
Z.
Mine says the Lord hides or the Lord protects.
Okay. One of the ways I saw it, I called it like hidden or a treasure.
Oh, a treasure. Nice.
You know, sometimes you hide a treasure
Yeah.
to protect it, that kind of thing. So that's what his name means, as far as we know. Okay, and what else do we know about him? Anything?
Creates a lot of gloom and doom.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Well, that's true, but this seems to me to be more gloom and doom.
More, yeah.
In fewer pages.
This is gonna happen in your
Let's talk about
God's judgments. That's what it-
let's talk about Josiah for just a minute, because Josiah seems to be the king in charge of the southern kingdom of Judah. Josiah also is related to Hezekiah, because all those, it's hereditary. The kings of Judah are related to each other in that way. So Josiah, did you guys read that Josiah was like 8 when he
Yes.
became king? Did you read
Yeah.
that?
Mhm.
How can you rule at 8? I mean, somebody else is doing it and you're just a figurehead.
Well,
Read it, yeah.
you need to have help, of course. And so some people surmise that Zephaniah might even have been a part of that band of
Okay.
people that were helping him when he was young.
Or maybe he had an auto pen.
That is exactly what I thought. I said, I'm not gonna say that.
Scribes, yes.
Yes,
This
yes.
Auto scribe.
So, notice in your list of kings, who he came after. Josiah,
Son of Amon.
Yeah, it came after Amon, it says.
Amon,
Who only ruled
and,
2 years, that's why his son would be so young.
and Manasseh, who came before that, was king of Judah for a long time. And you know how we talked about in our introduction how some of the kings were good and some of them were bad, and some of them were only good part of the time, and so on. Manasseh was probably the worst.
Oh, really?
He had a 55-year rule, whoa.
Manasseh was the longest serving king of Judah and also the worst. He had a lot of bad things going on. And so, so there was a lot to have to get over, to relearn, to recover from during that time. So, this one place where I read figured he was probably, Josiah was probably in his 20s when he got it together and was able to begin to do some stuff. Do you remember in Kings? Oh, where do you find this? Kings, remember we try to relate this to Kings?
Mm-hmm.
2 Kings, chapter 22 to 24. That's the section where you get to read about Josiah's time. And that section of Kings, let's see if we can find it. 2 Kings 22. Put all that right there. If you want to find Kings, you got to get past the Psalms first. 2 Kings, beginning at 22.
Found.
What chapter are you on now?
Starting chapter 22.
22. Okay. Yeah.
21 talks about Manasseh, king of Judah, and then Amon, king, and then down to Josiah.
Josiah begins at 22. He was 8 years old when he became king.
31 years now.
Mhm. In the 18th year of his reign. So if he started in 640, 18 years from 640. Don't you hate having to do
622?
backwards?
622?
About 622. They started working on restoring the temple. You know, buildings like that always have repairs that need to be done, and this temple was no exception. And the people in charge of that reconstruction found something. What did they find? Book of the Law. They found an old book of the law. And it's not like, you know, we have books everywhere. They didn't have that many books. So just to be able to find this was, I mean, it had been lost or neglected, sure, for 50 years while the other people were not paying any attention. So they found it. They read it. They decided to do something about it. They read what the law said, and so Josiah is one of those reformer kings. So, and that's where you can read about Josiah. It goes on for several chapters of 2 Kings. So anyway,
Wasn't the only time though. Hezekiah, went into the temple and found the book of laws. Kind of going. The king, after decades, goes into the temple. Talk about neglect.
well, there was a lot of up and down about all of that, right?
Yeah.
So, so back to Zephaniah. He's older than King Josiah is definitely he's like a great grandson of Hezekiah, and Zephaniah might have been a grandson of Hezekiah. Gives you kind of an idea of the generational separation there. Nobody's sure. One place I read said probably so. One place I read said probably not. Nobody. There's no certainties in this, but we can try to keep up with what people have discovered. Hidden or treasure, that's what his name means. Are there any other Zephaniahs in the scripture besides this one?
I didn't even know about this
Something I read, if you want to look them up, you can, but there's 3 other Zephaniahs that are not, you sort of have to go to a Bible dictionary to find out stuff like this. It was actually a lot of fun looking back at my Bible dictionary. The Bible dictionary that I have was edited and put together by a man named Paul Achtemeier. And he and his wife both were Bible scholars. They knew a lot about it. They're part of the people that tell us these kinds of things. In my Bible dictionary in the front is a flyer from one of the times that I visited back at A&M United Methodist Church in College Station one weekend when they were having a lecture series, and Elizabeth Achtemeier was the lecturer. So when I read the article about Zephaniah in the Bible dictionary, I was really not surprised to see that she was one of the sources for that particular article. Because she's a minor prophet scholar in her own right. So So that name has always kind of stuck with me because I happened to be there in town that weekend and she was doing several presentations. So that was real cool. It's like, okay, I know that person.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's where I found out about the others. There's a Zephaniah, several places in the book of Jeremiah. I'm going to write these up here so you can look them up if you want to. They're pretty obscure, and which one of these am I using? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Jeremiah 21:1. You can go look up. First Chronicles 6:36 is another Zephaniah, and Grace's favorite book, Zechariah.
I get mixed up.
6:10-14. That right there tells you it's not the same book because Zechariah has way more chapters than Zephaniah has.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I told her I was studying Zephaniah, and then before I knew it, I was looking at Zechariah.
so anyway, these are references where you'll find the other scripture references to somebody else, 3 other somebody else's who are named Zephaniah also. But as far as I can find, there's no quotations of Zephaniah in other parts of the Old Testament or in the New Testament. So what you see there is what you've got. So what was he about anyway?
Israel enemies are in deep doo-doo.
Just
They're in trouble.
Just Israel's enemies?
Well,
Everyone.
I think he did.
Also,
Israel and everybody that wasn't Israel.
Like some of the other prophets that we've looked at, he made the rounds of the neighboring countries that were not doing so well, but he also talked about Judah itself. So, I don't know what I was going to write. Do that until I figure out what I was going to write. Oh, I know what I was going to write. The big overarching theme. Any of you said it out loud yet?
Oh, yes, the day of the Lord.
Yes.
Second coming.
This is not the only prophet who talked about the day of the Lord, nor even the only place in Scripture where we hear that phrase. But it's a big part of what he's talking about. There's the other mark. Okay. Day of the Lord.
He really concentrates on Judah
Uh-huh.
in chapter 1. He goes on to other people in chapter 2.
Right. So let's read some of it. Zephaniah. Beginning with chapter 1. We talked about the first verse, so starting with 1:2, verse 2. Somebody read some of Zephaniah. Anybody?
1, 2, or 2?
Chapter 1, verse 2. Start there.
I don't know if I have the right one. I will sweep away everything from the face of Praise the Lord. Don't you want?
That's it?
That's it.
I will sweep away both men and animals. I will sweep away the birds of the air and the fish of the sea. The wicked will have only heaps of rubble. When I cut off man from the face of the earth, there's the Lord. Keep going.
Sure.
Against Judah. I will stretch out my hand against Judah and against all who live in Jerusalem. I will cut off from this place every remnant of all, the names of the pagan and the idolatrous priests, those who bow down on the roofs to worship the starry host, those who bow down and swear by the Lord, and who also swear by Molech, those who turn back from following the Lord and neither seek the Lord nor inquire of him. Be silent before the sovereign Lord, for the day of the Lord is near. The Lord is prepared to sacrifice. He has concentrated those he has invited. On the day of the Lord's sacrifice, I will punish the princes and the king's sons and all those clad in foreign clothes. On that day, I will punish all who avoid stepping on the threshold, who fill the temple of their gods with violence and deceit.
Okay, it keeps going on, right?
Right. So, just gonna do it with everything.
If you skip down to verse 14, he starts talking about the day of the Lord. Somebody else read from 14.
My version calls it the day of judgment.
Okay. Okay. If you noticed on the schedule, I put titles with these, and somebody that I read insisted upon using the word Yahweh in place of the Lord, but it's the same. Somebody start at 14 and read something.
The great day of the Lord is near and coming quickly. Listen, the cry on the day of the Lord will be bitter, the shouting of the warrior there. That day will be a day of wrath, a day of distress and anguish, a day of trouble and ruin, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and blackness, a day of trumpet and battle cry against the fortified cities and against the corner towers. I will bring distress on the people, and they will walk like blind men because they have sinned against the Lord. Their blood will be poured out like dust and their entrails like filth. Neither their silver nor their gold will be able to save them on the day of the Lord's wrath. In the fire of his jealousy, the whole world will be consumed, for he will make a sudden end of all who live in the earth. That sounds like Revelation.
Why was that startling? I think during all that time that Manasseh was king, even though spiritually they were in deep trouble, otherwise they were doing pretty well. They thought they were looking forward to predictions of the day of the Lord. Because in their mind, in the people's mind, that's when all the enemies around them were going to be defeated and they were going to be great. So the prophets come along and tell them otherwise. You're not doing so well as you thought. What are the problems? What are the problems that are being addressed here?
Idolatry and worshiping other gods.
Idolatry is one big thing.
That's been huge with all.
Yeah.
Greed and cheating, that's pretty rampant.
Idolatry.
Yeah, idolatry is a big thing. Greed
And indolence.
Greed and corruption. Indolence, that's a good word. We need to write some of these up. Okay. Because we think it was just them that had to stop it.
Oh.
And
No.
Did I spell it right?
Yeah.
Greed. What else did you, oh, idolatry.
Idolatry, yeah.
Another word for this is corruption.
In other words, the same thing, problems we have today.
You
Nothing
notice,
new, right?
you
That
notice.
sounds very.
Yes, yes. I need to read you a couple of things here. Somebody wrote a definition of what an idol is. Inert, artificial barriers between us and God. Used to avoid a deep relationship with God and settle for a false substitute. That definition laps over into now. Anything that gets in the way. Is that inert, artificial barriers, inert? The actual idols tended to be made out of stuff. Artificial barriers between us and God. Giving people a false sense of security. They thought, if I have this thing in my hand, then I'm good.
A rabbit's foot,
Yeah. Your lucky charm.
Yes,
whatever.
right?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's some other words that go with that word. Ambivalence. Ambivalence. There's another word, indifference.
Yeah, that's a bad.
Complacency. These words all apply when things are going well.
Mhm.
And it's like, it's kind of a who needs God kind of an attitude, right? Some self-satisfaction toward God. We can do it. Not only do we not need God, but God's probably not going to do anything anyway. It's like,
He's an inconvenience at that point.
yes.
I won't get to do what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. So, one of the things that I read pointed out that this is not that much different from what was wrong with Laodicea. Anybody remember that word? Oops, I did it wrong already. Laodicea. Anybody know where that is? Where have you heard that word before? Anybody? It's one of the 7 churches that Revelation is addressed to. Laodicea is the one where God says, I'm going to spit you out of my mouth because you're lukewarm. You don't care. You're indifferent. Okay? So that was pointed out as a. There's also some pride going on here. Anybody remember the Tower of Babel?
Mm-hmm.
We've sort of gone from the beginning and to the end of the Bible, haven't we? Just in the last minute. Tower of Babel. Why were they building that?
Get closer to God.
They wanted to get closer to God.
Yeah.
To be more like
Mhm.
actually.
it was an ambitious project with totally the wrong
Motivation.
idea.
And the wrong motive.
Yeah, yeah. Let's connect this to the New Testament for a second. In the same way that Judah didn't recognize the presence of God because of all these words we've been putting up here, the Jewish leaders in the New Testament times didn't recognize the presence of God in Jesus. It was a similar kind of, we've got this, we know what we're doing. And they didn't catch on to Jesus' message.
That's what they were waiting for.
It's what they were waiting for, but they didn't recognize
Yeah.
it. How many other stories do we hear where what you're really wanting is right in front of you and you don't recognize it? So anyway, what else?
My observation is people in power are very reluctant to give it up.
Mm-hmm.
And the Sadducees and the Pharisees, the greed, corruption, we're on top. Why in the world would I give that up?
Mm-hmm.
For this carpenter,
Mm-hmm.
and it's human.
How does that happen? How does that happen?
Human.
Somebody else that I read had an interesting description of corruption. Let me share that with you. By taking on responsibilities and getting things done, some people will inevitably rise to positions of authority. I mean, that happens naturally. You know, there are people who are talented at getting things done and kind of being in charge, and there are people who follow and help do the work. So there's nothing wrong with that. They then have enhanced access to resources which are unavailable to others. The great temptation arises to use that authority to one's own benefit at the expense of those who have less authority. Often using force and coercion to, so to speak, rig the game in their favor. See how that slippery slope happens? Who talks about that slippery slope? Lots of people. C.S. Lewis talks about that slippery slope. Making upward mobility hard or even impossible for others. Arrogant, shameless, blatant oppression and extortion of others, utter scorning of the worship of God. See how that kind of runs from one end to the other? That's what was going on in these supposedly good times that Zephaniah is talking about. So what do we have to do to guard against that? To guard against the complacency or the corruption. This is an overall word that works pretty well. These are the things that were problems. These are the things that still can be problems now. How do we guard against that?
Find that solution.
Yeah, let's just say.
Yeah,
that's-
really.
I mean, obviously it has to be God-centered, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Even if that's all the
Term
Pharisees
limitations.
were supposedly God's centered.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Term limits.
yeah.
Through God's Spirit at work, pride and haughtiness subside into lowliness of heart. So we've got to be aware of God. and the work of God's Spirit to help turn this tendency around, because that's human nature, is to go down that route. And it's difficult to stand up against that because it's a natural tendency, unless you stop and say, hold it, that's not right.
No, when you were saying, it kind of sounds like I don't need God. I can do it on my own. I was thinking, that's kind of how I was when I was a teenager. You would think that by 78, I would have worked my way to wisdom a little bit more.
Still human.
Always a work in
Still.
progress.
Right, always a work in progress.
Even people who are God fearing, following those orders, they just think that they're the only ones who do it. They're the only ones who hear God.
Arrogance and pride
Right, yeah.
kick in.
Yeah. That's why I wrote all those words up there. Those are all good. Am I right here? No.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're all there. So that's what's going on. We need to read some more of this book. So let's see. Where were we? We read all of chapter 1. Let's read a little bit of chapter 2. Because this is still being against Judah a little bit in chapter 2. Somebody start with verse 1 and let's keep going.
Come together in old assembly, O shameless nation, before you are driven away like the drifting shaft, before there comes upon you the fierce anger of the Lord, before there comes upon you the day of the wrath of the Lord. Seek the Lord, all you humble of land, who do his commands. Seek righteousness, seek humility. Perhaps you may be hidden on the day of the wrath of the Lord. For Gaza shall be deserted, and Ashkelon shall become a desolation. Ashdod's people shall be driven out at noon. Ekron shall be uprooted.
Okay, who's that? Who's he talking about now? At verse 4, he switched to talking about somebody else.
Yeah.
One of the neighbors. We've been hearing a lot about that neighbor lately, haven't
Mhm.
Gaza, yeah.
I mean, Gaza is still there. Philistia is still there under different names, but it's still there.
The Moabites, the Philistines, and the
Ammonites, yes. So at verse 4, it starts in against Gaza, and then the Philistines, and then at verse 8, Moab and Ammon. Remember on your map that I gave you, those are the nearby neighbors to the east. Okay, and then at verse 12 and 13, it moves to a couple of different regions.
Oh, you know what came to my mind when I read this?
What?
When it says, a land possessed by nettles and salt pits and a waste forever, Lion King. But Scar did to the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, that's exactly what it looked like out there.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people really are pleased with the Lion King. I wonder how many of those people recognize that character of that lion, Scar.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Disney's personification of evil in that particular story.
And this is a perfect picture of it right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Desert characteristics. Bush is another word for the portion of the territory. All of your, in verse 12, all of your translations say Cush.
Yes.
Okay. So that's essentially south of the territory of Judah. And then, of course, Assyria is off to the north. So here in this section, in the middle of chapter 2, besides attacking Judah itself, that's where this prophet gets around to talking about the other nations surrounding Judah.
Even goes as far as the Ethiopians.
Uh-huh.
And that's in Africa.
Uh-huh. Well, Egypt is in Africa.
Yeah, I realize.
Yeah. So anyway, yes. That's part of that south. Remember that you always have to keep in mind that visual of the territory that is Israel and Judah is right in the middle. It's the most convenient way to get between stuff in the north and stuff in the south. You gotta go there. Because you can't go through that Arabian desert easily. It's just inhospitable.
So why did God put the Jews in Israel? Oh, so they could communicate with Israel. You know, why they're there.
It's like, okay, of all the places to be called the promised land, why is it there? It's sort of a communication channel for the whole known world at the time. So let's see, what am I looking for? When you get to verse 6, there's a slight reprieve here. Somebody read from chapter 2, verses 6 and 7, because they're a little different.
Land by the sea, where the Kethites dwell, will be the place for shepherds and sheep. It will belong to the remnant of the house of Judah. There they will find pasture. In the evening they will lie down in the house of Ashkelon. The Lord their God will care for them. He will restore their fortune.
It's a little reprieve, isn't it? It's like a little breathing space in the midst of all of this prediction of the day of the Lord is not going to be what you think it's going to be because of all the evil things that are going on. But there's a little reprieve there. And then there's some more good news at the end. We haven't read any of chapter 3 yet, but look at let's read to the end, beginning at 3:9. Somebody read a little bit there. Anybody?
That time I will change the speech of my returning people to pure Hebrew, so that all can worship there. Those who live far beyond the rivers will come with their offerings, asking me to be their God. And then you will no longer need. You will no longer be rebels against me. I will remove all your pride and arrogance from among you. There will be no pride or haughtiness on my face. Those who are left will be poor and they will trust in the name of the Lord. They will not be sinners full of lies and deceit. They will live quietly in peace and lie down in safety. And no one.
There's the good news. There's the promise. If you were hearing this speech from Zephaniah for the first time, what would you be thinking?
It depends on who I am.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I was one of the shepherds, I might be thinking, yes, finally, that I was those.
Anybody
They said
else?
that one of the prideful that will be removed, I might be already found.
I might kill Zephaniah just because I don't like what he's saying. I mean, telling me,
Reading all
you know,
of
that was
these, that has happened to prophets in the
several
past.
times.
Yeah, that's the thing that gives me more than anything is, how did these guys live long enough to prophesy? Because
And it'd be
I'm thinking
killed
God
before
helped
that.
a little,
I
but,
think there has, I think that definitely.
yeah, you know, more than, like I said many times, we've killed the messenger.
Mhm.
We crucified one of them.
Yeah.
Including, yeah, I was gonna say, including Jesus.
Some are arrogant enough to do the right.
That's
Don't
the
they
scary
Maybe God didn't think so.
So
To
how
be
do,
careful not to.
how do we know if we're doing that? That's scary.
I don't know that we do. We stumble through this life trying to do the right thing, but it's not necessarily what happens all
Mm-hmm. Right.
I've got a note here on
Okay.
Cush. It says, biblical Cush lay south of Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just a neighbor, it's a
Yeah.
long way
Mm-hmm.
south. So
Oh, one of your translations just now called it Ethiopia, and that's part of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering. That's Kush.
Yeah,
Good name.
So
So
that's
Cush
where-
and Ethiopia are basically the same area.
similar. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, roughly. Map study, just like chronological study, not an exact science for this time period of time. So that's what study Bibles are for, is to help you work your way through those multiple names and, you know, to make those connections between the various pieces. That's why it's helpful to have study notes and introductions and commentaries and that. It helps.
What verse should I find a reference to Cush?
So,
Chapter 2, verse 12.
2:12.
Lincoln, you miss it though.
No, mine calls it Ethiopia.
See,
Okay.
that's
Well, see, that's,
Depends on
yeah,
That's why I couldn't find the Cush.
good. Yeah, that depends on what your translation is gonna refer to it as. Yeah. Cush, Ethiopia, they think that the territory was kind of part Ethiopia, part Sudan. Sudan is the big block of territory that's, is that the one that's just south of Egypt? I always
Okay.
thought Sudan was west of Egypt.
Egypt.
Where's Sudan?
Yeah.
So that surprised me when they refer to it as Sudan. Anybody have a
That's what I'm looking
helpful map at the end?
Mine in the footnote says for Cushites, people from the upper Nile region.
And you have to remember the Nile flows the other way.
It goes from south to
Upper
north.
Nile means south.
South,
Yeah, Lake Victoria.
Yeah. So. Anybody ever heard of the Great Rift Valley?
I've seen the Great Rift
Mhm.
Valley.
You've seen some of it. Yeah.
Great diseases. Rift Valley fever.
Okay.
Africa's got some of the
They got some dandy, yes.
It's one of those geographical features that in Israel, the Dead Sea and the Jordan River, they're part of it.
Yeah.
But when you get further south, it keeps that cleft in the ground keeps going into Africa and so that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, yeah.
the Indian Ocean.
It's one of those geographical features that it's helpful to just keep in mind. I once was walking through a museum, probably the British Museum in London. I don't remember. And I kept seeing these labels talking about the Levant, Levant, and it's like, hey, I've been studying the Bible for quite a while, and I never heard that word before, so I had to look that one up. It's a generic term that talks about this entire region that we're
What's the word again?
on. Levant. I'll write it up here. So, no, Palestine is part of the Levant, but it's a bigger area than that. It's kind of a geographer's way of referring to that territory without giving it a name. Anyway, the Holy Land, all the way up and down. So anyway, is that a side note? Yes. Side notes are what makes this fun.
It's interesting stuff.
Right. So you're noticing that there's a little bit of going back and forth here, not quite as clearly as in some of the other prophets that we've talked about, but alternating between bad news and good news. There's a little bit of that going on here. Somebody said that Zephaniah clothed his words in just enough mystery to fit broader applications of universal truth. He was just generic enough to allow this message to apply to us, as well as to people he was immediately talking to. And this is not the first time that we've noticed that.
History repeats itself.
Yes. Because of that human nature stuff. We keep needing it, right?
Right.
Sometimes God says no, and sometimes God says yes. God says no to incorrect behavior and ulterior motives and that kind of thing. God says yes to worship that's genuine. Did you hear the word remnant? Somebody read it a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the word remnant in here? That's an important portion of prophecy. Even though it sounds like everything is going to get wiped out, it's always going to be a faithful remnant that remains. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. Remnant. There's a fabric application to that word.
Mm-hmm.
Leftovers.
Mm-hmm.
The end of the mold.
Make something big and beautiful.
Yeah, the end of the mold. It goes on sale.
Right.
And you turn it into your grandmother's priceless clothes, for example. Remnant. The people who were allowed to return after exile, which we haven't quite gotten there yet, but we're getting close. We haven't quite gotten there yet, as far as our timeline is concerned. But we're getting close to that return. That was an example of the remnant getting back. They weren't all wiped out. As you said, some of the people who theoretically didn't matter got to stay. They weren't taken away, so they were still there.
What Pastor Barbara's been talking about,
Mm-hmm.
the least likely.
Mm-hmm. Right. The unnoticed ones
Unnoticed.
that Jesus did know, does know. And I'll let you know. For you English people in the room, we have to think about some poetry. Go back to chapter 1 and look at verses 15 and 16. Does your study Bible say anything about those two verses collectively?
Inspiration for a hymn, medieval hymn. Eyes.
Oh, I see that note. In a dramatic passage of great lyrical power.
So leading no little great medieval hymn.
Here's what this one says. I'm having to read you stuff out of this one. This is a brilliant literary stanza, it says. This passage is probably the most classical description of the day of the Lord in Israelites' literature. And then he goes on to explain. Each of the phrases has 7 syllables, and the word day occurs 7 times. A complete stanza is thus formed. It's like he's talking about the actual form, the linguistic use of the words. And if you look at it, you can kind of see it. He's talking about the day of the Lord. The day will be a day of wrath, a day of distress and anguish, a day of trouble and ruin, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and blackness, a day of trumpet and battle cry against the cities.
If you want all 7 days, you have to put in 14 too.
Yeah.
That's where you
Right.
get your first 2 days.
That was the first thing that occurred to me when I read that. I went back and counted them, and it's like, oh, in that verse, there's only
5.
6.
Oh, 6.
Yeah.
I only have 5.
Where'd you find this other one?
Verse 14.
Oh, from the day of the Lord.
Verse,
Yeah, there are days.
verse 16, you have to include the day of shofar blasts and battle.
yeah. It's 6.
Okay, but
15,
even
16.
the book where I had found that note, like in 15 and 16, there's only 6 of them. Anyway, they must be reading something that I'm not reading. It's just a comment about the poetry. If you were a Jewish person or acquainted with the Jewish language and you were reading this in Hebrew, there are these poetic kinds of things that you would catch right away. He's using, in this case, call that alliteration when you keep using the same word over and over.
It's when they have the same sound and the number
Same
of
sound
words.
and letter.
Yeah.
But there's poetic genius that Zephaniah is writing. And it's not just here, it's all over the place. He's pretty talented at writing, actually. If you were knowledgeable enough to be able to read this in Hebrew, you would notice that. English translations find it harder to convey that same beauty.
You, first line of verse 15 has the word day twice.
Uh-huh.
You you can get to 7 that way.
Okay.
Without 16.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that
Yeah. So anyway, but that's it's just an interesting point
Yes.
that helps us to know. One of the things that we know about Zephaniah is a pretty skilled writer, and he knows the language and he uses it well.
Might be part of that royalty training and education.
Hanging around the capital, so to speak, hanging around the palace and helping out.
Writing it in such a way, it helps people remember what they heard, you know,
sure.
from preschool on up. You
Right.
want to teach the kids something to put it in the rhyme.
Did you hear the children singing
Yeah.
when you're happy and you know it? How many variations on that song can you invent to help the message get through?
People may not, or did not read, so he wants them to remember what he's telling
That'd be
them. Gotta put it in it.
Uh-huh. Right, right. Anyway, okay. Sure. That's okay. Let's see. There's another couple of things here. In chapter 3, he's doing something similar. Oh, there it is. Chapter 3, he's doing something similar. A similar note somewhere says in chapter 3, he's using the phrase in the midst repeatedly. And it says that phrase is here in chapter 3 more times than in any other chapter in the Old Testament. So in the midst, it's a code word. Let's see if we can find some of it.
If it was in Hebrew.
There's the word remnant again in verse 13.
Well, there's in the midst.
So
Yeah,
this
I
one,
think mine says within you
this
instead
one
of in the
says,
midst.
this one says within you.
Okay, and 15 and 17.
So NIV may not use those words in the midst, but other translations do. So talking about the idea of God being not only with you, but inside you. Help. Toward the end, verse 17 and 18. The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing. The sorrows for the appointed feast I will remove from you. They are a burden and a reproach to you. At that time I will deal with all who oppress you, rescue the lame, etc. Gather you at that time, bring you home. That's got to have been good news for them to hear.
Yes.
Yeah. We got to see a little bit of that yesterday in the news.
Yeah.
I would wonder if I was one of the ones. It would be Rocco.
Uh-huh.
Because with all those words,
So the note that
Chapter 3, verse 10. My translation has cushion. wonder if you still have the,
Reverse in Ethiopia.
On the rivers of Kush.
Mine don't like Kush, they like Ethiopia.
yes, they do.
The only place I see Kush is on one of the maps. It has Kush in parentheses under Ethiopia.
The point of looking at 17 and 18 here, God is rejoicing. I mean, did you hear that? This translation says he will take great delight in it. What I read said that was unique in the Old Testament. The Hebrew word that's translated in that verse, God rejoicing in it. It's like came to the party to celebrate with you. That word is unique in this place in the Old Testament.
It says here, God is a warrior who gives victory.
Okay.
Mine says, is that a joyous choir I hear?
Oh,
It is the Lord himself. Happy song.
yeah. That's
It's interesting how different our translations are.
right.
I have no happy choir.
In my book.
Mine just says rejoice over you with singing. Different translations.
And it sounds like he's doing the singing in mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's rare in the Old Testament to see God joining in the celebration, like this. Apparently, that word is pretty specific about that kind of rejoicing. We're much more likely to hear God say more serious things than this. But it's good to know that God cares about us enough and celebrate. He would help celebrate. What else do you see in here? What did we forget? Did you find anything in here we haven't talked about?
Very end, chapter 3, verse 20. At that time I will gather you. At that time I will bring you home. I will give you honor and praise among all the people of the earth, and I restore your fortunes before your very eyes.
That's pretty good news.
That's
isn't
good
it?
news.
Yeah.
So, like other prophets, he's written this in a way that not only could it apply to the return from exile, or if you look back in history to the event of the Exodus, being saved from slavery, it could have a more modern interpretation when the Jews in 48 got to return to their
Ancestral home?
life. The problem is it's not just their home.
Yeah.
They got to learn to share.
They tried.
They're still working on it.
And they're still working
Yeah,
on
really.
trying to learn to share that place. That's important to remember that it's not over yet. The president may say it's over, but we'll see.
Yeah.
It's
Not
been
the final
going on
piece,
for a
no.
long time. So
Thousands of years.
Well, yeah.
we can try to be positive now and be hopefully positive. Maybe that story will change.
Well, step one gotta come, so.
Yes. Lots of people got to come home yesterday.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Anything else you noticed that you're just anxious to share. Next time we'll be in Obadiah and Haggai. Obadiah is very short.
I noticed that.
You guys not real.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, many of these minor prophets are quite short.
Yes.
They're not all quite short, but they're all relatively short if you compare them to, for example, Isaiah and Jeremiah, which are interminable.
Hence, minor prophets.
Hence minor prophets, yes, but not unimportant. They need to be written and read that. So next time we'll be doing those. I'm really glad that all of you are here today. I'm going to issue an invitation to you. Well, actually, two things. See that Bible that's sitting right there by Mary? That is not hers unless she wants it to be. That is a Bible that was donated to the church as being unusable by the person who originally belonged to. So I was handed that to see if anybody is aware of who needs a study Bible. You're welcome to take a look at it. And if you know of anybody who is in need of a study Bible, it's available. It lives in the office right now.
It lives in the office.
It lives in the office right now, tucked away. So just be aware of that. It doesn't need to live in the office. It needs to be in possession of somebody who needs a Bible. So anyway, and the other thing is we like to close with a word of prayer. Because I want to be encouraging of everybody in the room to feel courageous and to feel reassured that you're in friendly company. Don't be afraid. Volunteer. Close us with a word of prayer. Who would like to do that today? I can do that today. Thank you.
Father God, we thank you for this time. Had a lot of interesting thoughts and ideas. Thank you for giving those ideas and thoughts to us, opening our minds, maybe our hearts too, to think about how we fit into this too. It isn't just from the era of Zephaniah. Maybe we're all Zephaniahs. Maybe we all fit into that same, some of those same mistakes that he was preaching about, prophesying about. Go with us this week and help us to be your people.